Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Remember Me Daily Readings for Lent. And we're here on the penultimate day of Lent and the most important day, I would say. Uh, the most important day, Good Friday. And with that, let me read the readings for today. Sacrifice is one of life's great laws, both in the material and in the moral order. It is indeed a universal law. What can be achieved without sacrifice? The value of a thing is in proportion to the labor it has cost. The greater the object sought, the grander the renunciation in its attainment. Every state of life, every position, has its sacrifices, a truth commonly referred to as the reverse of the medal. And it is remarkable that we only really esteem and admire what represents difficulties overcome, and seek out such results only to serve as the setting of our treasures. The works and the monuments that nations count as their greatest ornaments have cost the architect, the student, the composer untold labor. What application they represent, what efforts of thought and what will, what sleepless nights, what depression and discouragement overcome. And these sacrifices were made the passing shadow of glory. We work so willingly for temporal gains. The sacrifice of ourselves given to God renders us holy to ourselves. A life of sacrifice is a life drawn from a divine fountain. From the life of sacrifice Christ lived on earth, whence was drawn the salvation of the world. The Son of God became man to suffer and to end his earthly life by the supreme sacrifice of the cross. All phases of sacrifice are united in his commusatum or consummatum est. The sacrifice is perfect. And to end, Jesus Christ had nowhere to lay his head on earth except the tomb. So, let me just leave this here. We've been talking about this for a various times throughout the series about sacrifice. I'm pretty sure we've gone over it. If I don't remember, I've done a lot of episodes in the show, so I might have and not. But whether we did or not, let's just say I didn't. Right? Sacrifice is important, and sacrifice is what separates us from, again, the Protestants. The Protestants ultimately have no concept of sacrifice. They are, right? They live much like the atheists, people who don't want to sacrifice anything for anything. And they're content with that. But we can't be. Sacrifice is important. Nothing worth doing, nothing worth doing would be free. We sacrifice a lot of things. If we want to be closer to God, we sacrifice our time. We sacrifice our temporal delights, whatever that may be. We sacrifice that. If we want to get a skill, again, sacrifice time. Time is important, right? If we want to have a family, if we want to have a family, we sacrifice ourselves, right? We stop putting ourselves first and we put other people before us. That is the spirit of sacrifice. That is something that distinguishes us from not just the world, right? But from people who fancy themselves Christians, other people who fancy themselves that. The big sacrifice. People don't like making sacrifices. This is why they say that, they accuse Catholic ideology to be of the devil, they say. Talking first and foremost of the Protestants, right? Going back to them. They say that our interpretation, our religion is that of Satan because they don't want to sacrifice. They don't want to sacrifice the stuff that they love for Christ. Some people will say, are you accusing these people of not loving Christ? And I dare to say yes. Yes, they don't love Christ. They don't love Christ. If they did, if they loved Christ, they would be open, or they would make their way to try to sacrifice for him without making excuses. Right? This is why faith alone is so important to them. Salvation can only be attained by faith alone, is what they say, because if that weren't the case, they would have to make sacrifices. Now, I know some of them will tell you that they do make sacrifices, but that's not necessary. You ask them enough times, you push them back, and they'll tell you it's not necessary. Ultimately, it's not necessary for them to sacrifice, to put God first. It's not necessary for them. Right? So whether they do or they don't, maybe they do. Maybe they do a performative contradiction, right? They say it's not necessary, but they do it anyway. It's a performative contradiction. It's not necessary to do. We Catholics know that sacrifice is necessary, right? And we have to separate ourselves because not all Catholics believe this. There is a Protestantization of Catholicism today. A lot of people who fancy themselves Catholics are just Protestants who like the Virgin Mary. You can't really tell the difference. There are people who don't want to sacrifice the good living of eating a burger on Friday. They can't sacrifice praying more. They tell you the rosary is not necessary. They can't do anything more. Right? They can't they can't do more for God. And they tell you it's not necessary. These are people who claim to be Catholic who don't like sacrifice. Right? And they also too reflect not only Protestants, not only do they have something in common with Protestants, but they have something in common with the world. The world hates sacrifice. The world wants everything easy. Right? There's people there are people who, who claim, right? They want to be traditionally Catholic. They want to have the trad wife, the trad lifestyle. It's just a LARP, right? They LARP. And I'll tell you why they LARP. They LARP because they don't want to do what's necessary, right? To be Catholic and to have that spirit of sacrifice that Christ had, right? As much as they talk about, as much as they talk about demographic replacement and all that stuff, as much as they talk about how marriage is important, keep in mind, right? I'm sticking with the Catholics right now. We're done talking about the Protestants. Sticking with the Catholics right now. Keep in mind, to have a family today, to have a family is a sacrifice. You're going to be poor. You're going to be poor. You're going to struggle. It's true. The economy is bad. And if you really want to live a truly Catholic life, and I can, how many times I've seen Catholics live this life, I can't even can't even use all my fingers. But I've seen the Catholic lifestyle lived in the city, and I've seen it, and it's not glamorous. It's not anything you want to show off on social media. It's a very humble life. That's the problem. We Catholics don't want to sacrifice Don't want to sacrifice the easy living that we have. We have it good. I have it good. I have it good. I have my books, have my nice statue of Jesus. I have a large picture of Our Lady. I have a very large library, I would say. I have a lot of stuff, right? A lot of stuff. Even that's hard for me to sacrifice. Some Catholics can't even get off the computer. Can't even get off. You're chronically online, right? You're chronically online. Oh, you're interested in having the base takes, right? Having the base takes. Oh, I'm over here having the basic. You don't sacrifice the damn thing. You don't do anything. Some of these people who are chronically online, if you tell them, hey, if Christ appeared to you at the moment and told you, hey, here's the deal, you can get your salvation easy, straight to heaven, no purgatory, sacrifice your internet. I don't think you guys can do it. Those guys who are chronically online. It's that sacrifice. There's a lot of Catholics who don't. They hate that word too. And I think it's important today on Good Friday that we look at ourselves and we talk about sacrifice. Today is the day that our Lord laid down his life for us. He allowed himself, he sacrificed himself for our good. It wasn't for his good. He didn't need to do that. He sacrificed himself. And in return, what do we give him? We give him our time? No. And I'm included in this. Do we pray as much as we're supposed to? No. Do we visit him in the Blessed Sacrament? No. Do we go to Mass more than on Sundays? No. And that's something I do remember talking about going to Mass on multiple days. And we don't go to it. Right? We don't go to it. We don't have that spirit of sacrifice, unfortunately. We don't have it. As much as we want to make fun of the Protestants, as much as we want to make fun of the atheists, because the atheists have that problem too. They don't have the sacrifice. But it's worse for us Catholics that we don't have that spirit of sacrifice because we know better. We have the fullness of truth. We have the fullness of truth. And in that fullness of truth, we have to adopt the spirit of sacrifice. We too, and I talked about this specifically, we have to pick up our crosses when the cross is on the floor. We have to pick it up and we have to take it. And a lot of Catholics have not been picking up their cross. That I can tell you. A lot of them have not been picking up their cross. Nope. Have not done it. Okay. And do everything that they can to avoid it. And we have to improve on that. We have to use this. If we learned anything from this Lent, right? We learned anything, and it's good that this is the penultimate chapter, right? It's good on this day that it specifically talks about this, specifically talks about sacrifice. It costs us to do things. If you want to go to heaven, it will cost us. It will cost us our life. And I'm not talking about, right? I'm not talking about committing the sin of offing yourself. That's not what I'm talking about. It's the spiritual death, the death of the human self, to deny yourself in order to grow spiritually. And a lot of us Catholics don't do that. A lot of people who fancy themselves traditional Catholics don't do that. Right? They don't do that. I see it all the time. There's certain stuff. It's like with NFP. Like they make excuses for why they can, how come I can do this or what is that? And when it's really, you can't even sacrifice not getting toasty for the day, for the night. Don't don't do it. Don't do it. You don't have to come up with this legalistic stuff. Oh, I can do it. Well, well, it's gonna be harmful for us, and no, it's a time of dire time, and what? How about you just don't do it? How about you just sacrifice? You do a little sacrifice when it comes to sacrificing that animal urge. How about you sacrifice it and not do it? When people don't, well, it's because if I need to pray, I need to be in the mode, and I have to be. No, how about you sacrifice your time and pray the rosary? These people, and then they tell you, right? These are Catholics who tell you that it's not necessary to pray the rosary. No, how about you spend some time, sacrifice your time to pray it? Why don't you sacrifice your time off the internet and start doing some more spiritual reading? And I say this like you can tell who prays and who doesn't by the way they act. You could tell they don't do that, right? Because there's a lot of Catholics out there. Well, I'm a Catholic. I believe in the core foundations of the faith. That's what I believe in, making jokes. And then every other word is F this and F that and this and this and that and S word this and S word that. All these other, like, you don't keep your composure. You can't sacrifice that little, spice that you put in your, right, in your language when you're talking. You can't even sacrifice that. You can't even, oh, I can't get up, I can't go to confession because then I would have to wake up half an hour earlier. You can't even do that. These are the things that we have to sacrifice. We have to adopt the spirit of sacrifice. It's important that we do that. We have to imitate ourselves. The second most popular book in Catholicism, The Imitation of Christ, we have to do that. We have to imitate Christ. You have to do it every day. We have to improve more and more. We have to imitate Christ. And we can't imitate Christ without adopting this spirit of sacrifice, true sacrifice. True sacrifice. Because I think for the most part, a lot of people, I don't need to name people, I'm part of it too. This is not for anyone specific. It's just in general for all Catholics, right? We don't sacrifice as far as we're supposed to. And we make up all kinds of excuses. We fool ourselves into thinking that we left the world, and all we do is just make different excuses for it. Well, I found in the catechism. It doesn't say in the catechism that it doesn't explicitly say in the catechism that you can't do this. Doesn't need to sometimes, dude. It's common sense. But again, it's just stuff like you don't want to leave stuff. You don't want to leave stuff from the secular world. You don't want to leave this stuff from the secular world. You don't want to leave it. All you do is adopt new arguments to try to cope with why you do these things, and it's bad. It's really bad. Like what we were talking about in our earlier episode about how people they can't even refrain from eating meat on Fridays. The easiest thing to do. And you tell some Catholic, why don't you do? Well, I believe in the gospel. I go to mass. I believe in the gospel. Like, why don't you do more? Well, that's taking it a little too far, buddy. Making jokes, right? And the only thing that I would say to anybody who focuses on that, like, look, dude, you can leave your cross on the floor. You can leave your cross on the floor, right? Your day will come. Your day, your last day will come. And if you do the bare minimum, that's the bare minimum. I'm not saying that you're going to go to hell. I'm not saying that you're going to do that. I'm just saying if you do the bare minimum, if you take your cross, you pick up your cross and you just walk the slowest that you can, never do anything, never, right? Do the bare minimum, aim for the bare minimum. You're going to be in purgatory if you happen to make it in purgatory. Because another episode that we were talking about diminishing fervor. When you diminish fervor, you just diminish the faith. You're just playing yourself. You have a time bomb in your hands. You're already dead, basically. Spiritually, you're already dead. Maybe you're not dead today, but that refusal to sacrifice, that refusal to grow your fervor, right? And sacrifice, the spirit of sacrifice, sacrificing is what grows fervor. Instead of feeding that fervor, using sacrifice to feed that fire of fervor. All you do is you kill that fervor and you stop being Catholic. If you do the bare minimum, there's a lot of Catholics in purgatory right now who thought the same stuff. Well, I go to mass. That's it. They don't change their behavior. They don't sacrifice their time for prayer. They don't sacrifice their time to visit the Blessed Sacrament. No. But they go to mass. And most of these people, right, because this is a traditional Catholic channel, most of those people who are in purgatory right now who did the bare minimum, most of them, if not all, but most of them went to the traditional mass. So just because, well, I go to the traditional mass, sorry, buddy, but I actually, and I follow the 45, the pre-55 missal. It doesn't matter, dude. If that's all you do, the minimum thing that you do, you're going to be in purgatory for who knows how long. We're trying to avoid that here. And I'm sorry for being rough. Honestly, I'm sorry. It's not anything personal on anyone. It's just we all have to improve and we all have to adopt the spirit of sacrifice, because if we don't, you know, best case scenario is purgatory until the end of time. I wouldn't want to be that because it's the same flames, right? Best case scenario, you're in purgatory. Worst case scenario, you're in hell. Let's try to avoid that. But just to end this, let's look at the beautiful thing that Christ did for us. Christ didn't need to do this for us. Christ didn't need to become flesh. Christ didn't need to humble himself that low to be a human. He didn't have to do that. He did that to show us by his actions. Because Christ showed us by his actions, not just by talking. The spirit of sacrifice, the spirit of humility, he showed it to us. And he died on the cross today. And we have to remember that today. Whether you've gone to mass yet, if you haven't gone to mass yet, or you're coming back from mass, remember today that Christ sacrificed himself for our good. He didn't have to do it. But now we also have to learn from his example and do the best that we can. And I know you can. If you're watching this, I know you can. I know you can, dude. You're a good person. You're a good person. Just because you're a weak person doesn't mean you're a bad person. So I know people like to hey, are you a thief? Yeah, well, you're a bad person. No, dude. Most people sin because they're weak. Most people sin because they're weak. Most people don't get up and, hey, I want to be a degenerate. No. Even our enemies. Even our enemies. They sin because they're weak. I sin because I'm weak. Most of the time, even you watching the video, you sin because you're weak. But in recognizing your weakness, it means you can grow. In accepting your L's, that means that you can grow. I used to tell, when I had a soccer team, I used to tell my teammates whenever we would lose, hey, losing is not a bad thing as long as we learn something from it. Now, I'm not telling you to go and commit murder. That truly is evil, right? But I'm talking about the sins of, what we're talking about right now, like, speaking vulgarly, even, stuff like fornication, okay? You don't do that stuff because you're evil. You do that stuff because you're weak. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing for Protestants. Most of the time they believe in heresies because they're weak. Because they don't want. It's not that they can't. It's not that they can't sacrifice. It's because they don't want to. That's why. It's that they don't want to. Even atheists, even apostates. Like, why don't atheists convert? Why don't apostates reconvert? Because they're weak. They're weak. And they've been running away for as long as they had a conscience. They've always been running away from their duty, from their cross. They've been always running away from it, and they're weak. Because they're weak. So pray for them. Make sacrifices. For you, the Catholic, make sacrifices. Pray more. Fast more. right? Pick up a devotional book, do novenas, do all that stuff, and do it for the right reason. I don't think we talked about this too much, but doing novenas, oh, I want God to give me, I want God to give me this. I want God. No, how about you just ask God for some grace? How about you ask God to help you in your spiritual life instead of asking God for something earthly? You wonder why God doesn't answer your prayers when you're asking for stuff like, you know, this is not the channel to talk about the things that people, you know, ask for. We can take this another route, but I'm not going to do it on this channel because this is a serious channel. This is a serious channel. So I'm not going to talk, but you know what I'm talking about. A lot of men and women over here, praying for a spouse. How about you pray for some grace instead? How about you pray for patience in the will of God? How would you do that? Right? But like I said, we do these things because we're weak, and if we don't sacrifice, we don't practice what God showed us to do, what Christ showed us to do, also, we also run the risk of being, of being sinful for real. If we don't sacrifice, we're always going to be weak. We're never going to be strong. And you'll never be a strong Catholic. You'll never be strong in the faith if you do that. But this video has gone long enough. Hey, listen, guys. I'd like to thank you if you're watching this, or if you're watching this in the future. I really like to thank you. I'll do a proper thank you for, I think, tomorrow. Tomorrow should be Holy Saturday. It should be the last episode, and I'll go farther into the thank you guys. But anyway, please pray for me, and then I'll pray for you guys. And until next time, take care and God bless.